As I look back at our industry, it's easy for us to kind of want to be this to this customer and that to that customer, especially with multiple scopes of construction. And it's really important for us to always look back and reset and say, no, we're going to stay in our lane, and this is what we're going to do to be successful. We know exactly who we are, and we know exactly the customer that we want to serve. And does that impede our ability to scale big? Of course.
Put that coffee down.
Creators are leaders. Be careful what kind of leaders you're producing here.
Helen, we're both in sales. Let me tell you why I suck as a salesman.
They realized that to be in power, you didn't need guns or money or even numbers. You just needed the will to do what the other guy wouldn't.
I'm not leaving. The show goes on.
Well, hello there, friend. Welcome back to the Construction Leadership Podcast. I am your host, Bradley Hartman. I'm excited to bring to you today my conversation with Mr. John Perna. He's the president and CEO of Hamilton Building Supply in New Jersey. As you will hear, he's engaging, he's funny, he's smart, and you will understand through this conversation why he was elected as one of the 40 under 40. So a prominent award given to the next generation of young talent in leadership roles in the lumber and building material community. He attended Juniata College, a college I have not been to, the Eagles, but I will go there. I'm going to check it out. I will buy one of their pennants. I want to learn more about Juniata College. He got his MBA at Villanova University. John grew up in the business. He's very active in the leadership community. He's a board member of the BMDA. That's right. A lot of consonants all smashed together. The New Jersey Building Material Dealers Association. And in this conversation, you're going to hear how he has developed a younger, vibrant team that has attracted talent and the different levers that they use, including social media, as well as a culture at their locations to stand out, to be different, and to attract a younger crowd of not only employees at Hamilton, but also younger contractors that are willing to pay more for higher quality products and, I would say, higher quality relationships. We talk about the mechanics about how you can consistently have fun at work and make that a priority while having a work-life balance with proper time management for the family at the office as well as for your family at home. You, my friend, will enjoy this conversation with Mr. John Perna, President and CEO at Hamilton Building Supply. Mr. John Perna, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thrilled you're here. We've been talking about this for ages, and we have so much to talk about, which is why I really appreciate the fact you're busy, you're CEO, you've allocated 7 hours for us to go to a really deep dive here in every aspect of your life, personally and professionally.
Commercial-free football, 7 hours. That's right. Here it goes.
Here it goes. Dude, I want to go to the Wayback Machine first. You're 12 years old, 6th grade. Tell me, geographically, where are you in the U.S.? Tell me a little bit about your family. And what is young John Perna into? What's he passionate about at 12 years old?
Wow. There you go. So 12 years old, 6th grade. Intermediate school in Lawrence, New Jersey, which is a suburb of Princeton, New Jersey. Growing up with my dad and my stepmom and my mom and my stepdad. At that point, 3 very young siblings, I think 3 years old and 1 year old. But what am I into? So I was kind of like a heavyset kid. So finally started getting into sports. And my dad was like, you're going to go play football. And I was like, I don't want to play football. He's like, you're going to go play football. So he kicked me out and made me go and do organized sports for the first time ever, which I was absolutely horrible at. In so many words, I sucked. I sucked at football. And I wasn't, like I said, I wasn't very good, but I played through my first full year in 6th grade. And I was like, oh, that was so bad. I think I'll do it again. And then from there on, again, not very good. And then in 8th grade, the light just kind of clicked and I actually started getting, almost dangerous at the game. And I guess the rest is kind of history from there.
Yeah, I want to dig into that too. So Juniata College mascot is what?
the Eagle. Used to be the Indian, and then that went away in early 90s.
Okay.
So went from Juniata Indians to the Juniata Eagles.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And how far is that from Lawrence?
About 3.5 hours.
Okay.
So Juniata is in central Pennsylvania, small liberal arts college in Huntington, Pennsylvania, about, most people know it, like 30 minutes, 45 minutes from State College.
Okay. All right.
So Penn State country. Yeah.
Penn State country. You play 4 years of college football there. What position did you play? And maybe tell us, what's a big lesson that you take away from that experience that you still apply now in your leadership role?
Yeah. So I was an outside linebacker. I played strong side, weak side, outside linebacker. Had a boatload of fun. We weren't a great football team by any stretch. Certainly lost more games than we won. Whenever our defense was great, our offense was not doing well, and vice versa. Nonetheless, what you learn from 4 years of playing at that level of football, it's a year-round commitment. You have to finish. You have to be a finisher in every aspect, whether it's personally or as a team. If you do not finish your task or your assignment or your long-range goal, you're going to have a lot of regrets. You're going to leave a lot of things on the table that you're going to look back on and say, man, I wish I could have done that differently, or if I only did it this way. If you're a finisher, you know that there's no quit in you. And that's sort of like the resonating element from playing, 4 years of college sports that I always go back to, even today. And even what I talk about with our team or even my kids is, no matter what you do, start it, but always finish it. And if it's not great for you long term, you can always resign from it, but don't quit something while you're in the middle of it just because you think it's tough or it's too difficult or it's something you haven't done before. Got to finish.
What's the over-under on how many times on a football field you simply heard a coach scream at you or anyone, "Finish"? That's the full sentence, exclamation point. What's the over-under on how many times? Because when you wrote that in the email, I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah. I mean, you hear it all the time, like at least a dozen times, finish the play, finish the drive, execute. Yeah. Maybe, a couple dozen times in a game. That's what it's all about, is execution. And the players are the players, right? Like at a certain level, again, at a certain level of Division III, Division I, lumber and building materials, everybody's got the talent. But it's about your willingness and your ability to execute and think clearly and focus.
Yeah, we had a coach who was famous for standing, if you're running sprints, on the goal line and watching the guys that kind of pulled up at like the 5-yard line or the 4-yard line. And I just remember thinking, to make this guy impressed, all I had to do was just really go that extra 3 yards full, and he would see it and be like, "Hartman, good job." And I'm like, a relatively easy way to differentiate myself when I didn't have that talent. But that's that same idea of just, it's not like 50% more effort. It's generally like 2% more effort, to really stand out.
Yeah. One quick anecdote about that. So when I was a freshman, coming in, I was last on the depth chart. The only way I was going to see the field was trying to get on in special teams. And the only way you're going to get on special teams is by hustling, right? So I won my position early on in training camp in wind sprints at the end of practice, because I would just, I'd try and outrun everybody. And then the coaches see that and they're like, okay, cool. This kid, don't know who he is, but let's give him a shot on kickoff or on kick return or punt return. And that's how it all starts. But yeah, you can do your best work at the very last couple minutes of an entire practice or, again, an entire situation.
Yeah, absolutely. So the thing I've been really impressed with you and your team that I've met is that there seems to be a methodology. And I would love to draw that out from you if you're willing to share the secret sauce. Everybody's talking about, got to get younger talent, tough industry, it's dirty and it's grimy and it's unsexy, which part of that I agree with. A lot of it I don't. And there seems to be some standouts that say, actually, we're going to do this and we're going to find a way. I think a lot of people are seeing the end result, but I'm curious, how does that machinery work in the background? What are you doing as a leader to actually attract younger people to your organization?
Well, you have to illustrate your business as, frankly, this isn't a dead end job. Obviously we're not, some hot tech company or consultancy or a business of that nature, but We do have a lot of roles where people can earn really good money and have very fulfilling careers if they so choose and if they want to put forth the attitude and the effort. So when we recruit new talent coming in, certainly it's always nice to have experience in the industry. But that's a very insignificant variable anymore these days because a lot of times those with experience, there's almost like too much experience or too much tenure in the industry. And then you sort of have that situation where you really can't teach that person anything new. They're stuck in their old ways, et cetera. You've heard it, a couple hundred times before, but we're looking for attitude. We're looking for like what sort of clarity and like, what can your fresh eyes bring to our business to help us elevate our level of performance. A lot of times that can come from somebody who is in a service industry, like, working in a restaurant or managing a restaurant. Our VP of sales and purchasing was in that industry prior to joining the building materials industry in sales. You also have a lot of people who are coming from the construction side of the business. So they understand service. They understand working with a client one-on-one and the appreciation of what a contractor, an architect, and a homeowner have to work through. I was at another dealer a few weeks ago and I was talking to their VP of sales, and he had come from the tech industry and he was lured over, but he was just a really engaging personality and, wanted to try his hand at something different. And that's what the dealer was looking for. They wanted somebody from outside the industry to be serious about change. A lot of times, owners and managers, they talk about, oh yeah, sure, we want change. No, they don't want change. They don't rock the apple cart too much, right? Whereas we want your best and brightest ideas and everything's on the table. And if the idea sucks, all right, well, it sucks. We tried it. And if it's really a really good idea, really impactful, then it works in the long run. And, hopefully there's some traction there.
How do you frame that? On one hand, John saying, hey, this might not work, and that's okay. Yet, you guys are also running a big business. You guys are growing. At a certain level, there has to be a thing where there's too much failure. There's too much this isn't working. How do you balance that, and how do you lead where people feel safe to offer ideas or try something new, but also put some constraints around it? Because you've got some very serious customers that are building America, literally, and we got to make sure we perform for them. How do you do both?
Yeah, that's a good point. A lot of times people say, why do you always have meetings? And, oh, you guys are, managers are in another meeting again. And there's a lot of meetings in our industry where it's like, okay, you can actually just be out selling. And from the management perspective, yes, we are doing a lot of work on the ground, directly with our sales associates, our operations associates, et cetera. But we do get together when we meet. Our management team meets once a week. And that's really the committee room where some of these new, fresh ideas kind of come to light. We have a monthly sales meeting. We have a monthly operations meeting. And that's where you sort of throw the spaghetti against the wall and you sort of talk about hey, can this work? Or, hey, maybe let's think about that a little bit more. And at least the idea is out there. Managers kind of stew on it a little bit. There's some back and forth between some of the associates. And then if we think it has merit, if an idea has merit, then let's go forward with it. And if we find, weeks or months down the road that it's really just not working out from us, we bail, or if it is working out, then cool, let's put more resources behind it. But yeah, you don't want to just have a fresh idea and say, hey, okay, let's start doing this right now. It's totally untested. It's totally unproven. Let's get some feedback from all the stakeholders first. And if it's customer oriented, maybe you want to ask a few of your closer customers, hey, we're thinking about doing this. Mm-hmm. What do you think? How does this support your business? And then you take it from there.
There was an idea I read in some book. It was from the 60s or 70s where this company had a Queasy Eagle Award. And it was like a literal trophy that they would give out quarterly to an idea that they thought was good, but was not. And they ceremoniously killed this thing, but they gave the person an award to say, we like the idea. We knew it's possible. It's not going to work. But not only are we just going to ignore this when we kill it, we're going to praise it when we kill it. It didn't kill the company. And I was like, I love that idea, like the Queasy Eagle Award. And yeah, some of the stuff, it's going to make you a little queasy. But again, you are emphasizing we're looking for new ideas. We want more of that, and that's okay. Which I think speaks to something you guys are doing well that I want to ask about is, you guys seem to be having a lot of fun. And our first core value is a line that one of my first bosses used to always say is, fun ain't free, never goes on sale, which is, hey, we got to have fun. We spend too much time together not to enjoy what we're doing, but you got to work for that. And right now, John, I shared before we flipped the mics on a little bit, we're not living up to that core value now. We lost a talented member of our team that I'm still kind of getting over. It doesn't feel fun this week, but I'm firmly committed to getting back to that. I see the path to it. How do you guys do that to make fun part of what you do while also, I know your company, you guys are ambitious. You've got goals. You guys are growing. How do you kind of balance those two? And how do you guys make it such a fun place to work?
Yeah, wow, that's great. And I think that the best point you just mentioned is like there's weeks where it's not fun. It's like you're pulling your hair out and people are stressed. And again, it's the ebbs and flows, right? But in the long run, do we have a very engaged group of individuals who are really fulfilled by their work to the point where, when they come in, they feel good about being here? Yes, I believe we do. Otherwise, I think they would have left me by now. So,
yeah,
or left their managers by now. That's what the fun part is for me. Fun is not, hey, we have some ping pong tables and foosball tables and, go play Xbox in the lunchroom or something like that. That's all ticky-tack stuff. Like for us really is like, I'm selling building materials, I'm engaging with contractors, and while I'm here, we're doing something different and unique. I mean, i.e. our social media reels that we shoot, we're doing something unique to like kind of get our team involved. But it goes beyond that too. We have instances where we'll do events for our own team members to kind of get together. Like we'll have a barbecue every now and then on our back deck just to kind of get the group together. We have events for the community, but we also integrate all of our team members, our associates, and then we also celebrate the wins. That's really important in the aspect of having fun. In our sales meeting, we like to encourage our sales team to talk about, hey, I had this situation with a customer I was struggling with, and then I used these tactics, and then I won the sale. Or talking about how they flipped a customer over from one product to another, and now we're getting a lion's share of the business. We like to talk about those instances because they help the team kind of galvanize their work, and like it makes them reassured that, hey, the work I'm doing is actually very meaningful, and there's a lot of other people that I'm supporting by my success as a salesperson. Now my operations team is productive. Our managers are happy. The ownership is happy. And the contractor is now working with a dealer that we feel is like top notch. The other part of that really is like from a cultural standpoint, just being very open and honest and engaged with all the team members throughout the sales desk, throughout the yard, going up to them, talking to them. How's your family doing? How are your little ones doing? Tell me about, what's new in your life. And, again, you're not going to have those conversations day in, day out. It may be a month between conversations, but at least you're engaging with them. They don't feel like they're alone on an island by themselves. So we encourage managers to really have that sort of, that level of respect between one another. So I think that helps create sort of the fun aspect, is that like there's a lot of respect, there's a good cultural vibe, there's a lot of meaning to the work that we're doing.
How do you manage your time specifically? Will you time block certain hours or segments every other week to like go walk the yard? Or how do you do that? Because I think it's easy to talk about, the old MBWA that comes from like Tom Peters, managed by walking around. And you're like, yes, totally makes sense. We should do that. And then you find there are days when you and I probably sit behind our computer and I'm like, oh my God, I sat down and 8 hours went by. I didn't get up and I'm here. And meanwhile, all this work is happening. Maybe just give a little insight on how you kind of think about and plan your day to get those touch points on a somewhat regular basis.
It's so funny. Like, are you looking at my calendar right now? Every Friday morning from like 8 to 10, I have my MBWA. I'm just
do you really?
around.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay.
Yeah. And guess what happened today? I didn't do it because I had an impromptu meeting scheduled with a couple of our associates and a manager. And hey, it's a time block. It's there. Mm-hmm. I intend to get to it, but sometimes things get in the way. For me, batching my time is absolutely critical to my focus. I'm focused on a number of, or my attention is directed towards a number of different things, but ultimately for the organization, I focus on our people, I focus on our culture and our numbers, our revenue, our finances. So those are three disparate mindsets. Like I have to be able to batch my time to focus on them. If we're working on something, marketing related, I really want to batch my time so that I don't lose focus on that and get pulled into something else. The worst thing I feel like I can do, and maybe any other manager can do, is jump around from task to task to task and feel like you're accomplishing a lot, and you may be accomplishing something, but like what's the significance, or what's the level of success you're having when you do that? Maybe it creates more stress on you to do that. For me, I'm trying to alleviate my stress wherever I can. And that's where I feel like batching really helps my time and my organizational effort.
Well, we've recently turned down somebody who reached out who's looking for kind of a young executive who's kind of coming up through the ranks. And in just talking to him, he was talking about he believes his strongest strength is multitasking. And I said, okay. I said, let me ask you, would you be open to the idea that I would disabuse you of the notion that you or any other human is good at multitasking? And he's like, no. And we kind of went down and we talked quite a bit. And then I talked to the boss. I ended up telling him, like, we're not going to be a fit because human beings aren't good at multitasking. The switching costs are often really hard to see, but they're there. So this idea of batching, and I think to your point from a leadership standpoint is a really good one, is that while they might be like different activities, if they're all around just people or they're all around numbers, they're all around, it just allows you can still float within maybe smaller tasks, but you're all thinking about, you got to have a different mindset for social media than you do finances and EBITDA. So how long have you been doing that? And was there a point in your career where you're like, okay, here's where I can really move my productivity from 0 to 1 by doing more batching?
Yeah. Shortly after I took on the role here at Hamilton as the president and CEO, I knew I had to try and squeeze more time out of the workday. And I wasn't just going to work long hours at night because that wouldn't be fair to my family. Right. Not to say I don't work long hours. I pick times when they're sleeping to do some of my thinking work. Also when I'm at the office. But I work with an executive coach, and she really brought on the idea of focusing in and harnessing the tasks depending upon, what category it's in. And that's really where the batching idea sort of came to place. And I've been reading more books lately too that sort of reemphasize the notion. So yeah, I can't recommend it enough. And it's a practice really, because it's easy to get pulled into that multitasking. Hey, I'm conquering the world. I'm doing all this stuff at once. And you got that high going, but are you really effective at the work that you're producing? As opposed to saying, okay, let's put a pin in that. I'm going to focus on that. I'm going to use my Outlook calendar, which is always up, and I'm going to block time out here to make sure that I can get back to this particular item that is important, but not currently focused on what I'm trying to accomplish right now.
All right. You mentioned social media. As a segue to my belief that you guys are the most entertaining, differentiated follow on Instagram that I know of. I sent you guys little leadership tchotchke, if you will. This little leadership die, right? So I sent it to you guys. There's a little story behind it. We did a podcast on this. The number of times where I'm on my phone and I burst out laughing is pretty limited. Maybe once a month, right?
Yeah.
There's not that much stuff that really gets me. You guys posted something using this in a way that it was, John, I think unintended for, that blew my mind. And you and I happened to be together when I saw it in Charlotte for the LBM Strategies, where you were on the stage, you were 40 under 40. Can you give the audience a little context as to what is the fun? Because I think this is where you take the fun, but you also say we can have fun with this. It's a thing. And then we can use this as a way to share insights, bring joy, and also give people a little pause and show how you're different to attract a younger crowd. All of those came together for me in that one, obviously in a very personal way for me. Can you give the audience a little look behind the scenes as to what happened there locally at Hamilton?
Yeah. So I guess like the deeper context there is like why our Instagram is the way it is and why this is our brand is I got inspired by a guy I went to high school with who's now, a huge Instagram influencer, and he does like comedic skits every day, poking fun at pop culture and, everyday life that we can all relate to. And I was like, hey, like that's pretty cool. It's something unique and different. Maybe we can put a little spin on that in the building materials world. And that's sort of like how our Instagram flourished. But yeah, like when I think of an idea, or I encourage our team to think of ideas, we think of, okay, how does it relate to our business? And what's the parody that we can kind of put on it? What's the thing that everybody thinks, but nobody really says, in a good way? And how can we make fun with that? How can we make some humor out of that? Because you know what? No matter what business you're doing, a little humor doesn't hurt anybody. Correct. And that actually makes you feel really good. And it gives you that like energy. Yeah, that's right. Not everything has to be 100% serious every day. Obviously, we want to do good work and we want to be, the best operator we can be, but we can also have just a little bit of levity every once in a while. And so when we got sent these, these leadership die, and then I got one, and then John Jacob got one, and then JP got one, I was like, oh, we're going to get him good for this. So we were thinking, I was like, dice. I was like, Jersey, like, shooting craps in Atlantic City. I was like, we should have like a street, not a regular casino craps game, but like a street level, like CeeLo, shooting dice against the wall in the back alley, and that's what we did. And it was just like, oh, let's take blame. Did I get that? Oh, or deliver value first and putting bets on that. So, oh my gosh. I don't know. It's just something that like kind of just came to mind. Like, and it's weird. It'll just like pop into your head, like before you go to bed at night or on your way to work in the morning. And It's like, you just jot it down I'll jot an idea down on like my notes app in my phone and just come back to it at some point.
Well, JP wearing the glasses on his knees and saying, come on, it's not about you. Come on, it's not about you. And then throwing the die. Oh my gosh. So if you're watching this right now, because it is video, you guys can check this out again. We did a video on this. We did a podcast on it, all that. But we got to everyone should go. Number one, everybody should be following you guys on Instagram right now. And it's just what? At Hamilton Building Supply?
At Hamilton Building Supply.
Okay. Follow them right away. And I say that for multiple reasons. And I got a question here for you. One is just, it's entertaining. You'd see something different that very, very few other people are doing in any other industry, I think, from a corporate standpoint. Number two, though, I'm always trying to figure out the volume at which you put the content out. And I saw JP in there. I see John, you're in there. I see other casts of characters that I probably haven't met before.
Sure.
Tell me how the social media thing ties into the batching, and will you go one day every other week? Will you do once a month? How do you structure that? Because the volume you guys are putting out, the quality, I'm like, I don't even know how we'd do that. Like, and you guys are operating a much bigger business.
Yeah, and that's a good point. And I'm not going to lie, it's difficult. It requires a lot of time and energy, which is part of the reason why we're building up some content right now. And, we haven't put anything new out within like the last week or so. But the way we handle it, and this was sort of, advice that I received from my wife, because she has her own business and she runs her own Instagram. You got to batch it, right? So we'll film. The way this all works is, I'll come up with a laundry list of ideas for reels. I get some input from, some of our guys at the sales desk or some of our managers, put it all together. Maybe come up with like a light script sort of to follow along. And then we'll pick a date that everybody's available. Cause like the whole key is like, I don't want to just do it by myself. I want to get as many people involved as possible. Pull people in if they're working at the counter. All right, come on, you're going to come do this real quick. Or, John Jacob will be involved in a lot of them, or Mike Linden. And I will kind of set a Friday morning, like, hey, it's 8 a.m. Friday morning. Let's work till about noon on filming like 11 reels, and we'll put all the B-roll together for all these videos in a span of about like 2 or 3 hours at most. And then what I'll do is over the weekend, or, as I have a little bit of free time, I'll start to edit each reel in Instagram. So that way all the editing is done. And that probably takes longer than the actual shooting and the production. And then once that's all done, I have like a draft file of like 10 or 12 reels ready to go. And then I just kind of throw them out there when we see fit. I mean, it was kind of coincidental that we were at the LBM Journal conference, and we put the leadership die one out. But yeah.
So does that editing process for you, John, is that therapeutic or enjoyable, or like, is that something you love to do? And that's why you're saying, hey, I'm going to do that? Or, because that would surprise me in your role that you'd be doing that activity.
I do enjoy it.
Oh,
yeah. Okay. There's a part of me that I like that I have a little bit of a creative side, a very little bit of a creative side. And I do enjoy that from time to time, especially like if I'm just driving or I'm sick and tired of thinking about the numbers or, the next big thing that we want to sell to our customers, a service or a product. And, it's a nice little like release to, focus on, hey, let's do something cool for Instagram. Oh, here's a good idea. Or I'm watching 60 Minutes and there's Deion Sanders talking about how he's getting kids to go to Colorado. It's like, that'd be cool if, we put a spin on that and got Hamilton involved. Again, don't get me wrong. It's not for everyone and it is difficult, and I can only let it take so much of my time because, again, there's a lot more priority items that we do have to focus on when running a business, but I don't want to let that go by the wayside either.
Yeah. So maybe tell the audience a little bit about your wife, her business, and maybe what you've learned from seeing her operate her business and kind of that interplay between two smart people, grown businesses, got kids, and like learning from each other.
Yeah. So my wife, Dr. John Perna, she's a physical therapist by trade, but she started her own specialty practice for physical therapy. It's women's pelvic health. She treats women and only women for pelvic floor dysfunction and all of the diagnoses that go along with pelvic floor dysfunction. She has a practice in the town that we live in. She has 7 people on her team, 4 therapists and 3 admin, and including herself. She runs a ultra niche business. And what's really admirable about what she's doing is Jen is laser focused on the work that she's doing and the client that she serves. And a lot of times in our industry, as I look back at our industry, it's easy for us to kind of want to be this to this customer and that to that customer, especially with multiple scopes of construction. And it's really important for us to always like look back and reset and say, no, we're going to stay in our lane, and this is what we're going to do to be successful. My wife, she started her business in the pandemic. Wow. She was laid off from her practice where she was a lead therapist for women's pelvic health. And then she said, you know what, I'm just going to go out and do this on my own because I'm not going to sit back and be idle and wait for the next job to come along. She did that, and her business has been incredibly successful. Like I said, she's been able to hire people. She has an Instagram following, and she has a local community following. But I think a lot of that is driven not so much from her talent and her therapist skill set, but more so they know exactly who they are. They know exactly the customer that they serve, and they don't stray away from it, and they're not shy about it either. Because a lot of times they'll get asked, oh, will you treat men, or will you treat trans, or will you treat this issue that's not pelvic floor related? And they say, no, we are focused on this particular population. So again, from lumber and building materials perspective, obviously our business is a little bit more stratified. But when I think about our business, serving remodelers, renovators, custom home builders, supplying a high quality product that, from a product standpoint, you could probably find less expensive somewhere else at a lesser quality. We know exactly who we are, and we know exactly the customer that we want to serve. And does that impede our ability to scale big? Of course. We're not going to go against the BFSs and the USLBMs, but we know the market we serve. We know the customer we serve. And that's where I always try to maintain the focus. Don't lose sight of the focus. Don't be lured into the temptation of selling the big jobs. I mean, we sell big jobs, don't get me wrong, but
understood.
Bigger customers, yeah.
Well, it's that, strategy 101. Concentrate your forces, focus, right? Don't spread yourself thin. And I, as someone who has ideas and we see other opportunities and customers will talk about other pain points they've got, it's this constant push and pull on, I think we really can help solve problems over here and grow. Is that outside of our core competency in that? I had to go to my wife, by the way, to ask her about pelvic floor dysfunction. So got a little update there. That was not part of my,
just a little touch,
just enough to know it's a, I was going to say
That's
it's a
why I
punchline.
told Jen, I said, I'll do the numbers. You figure out everything else. But nonetheless, it's good dinner time talk.
Of course. Talk to me. Well, in your email, you put your note about a responsibility to both families, your own and your company's. Do you refer to the Hamilton family? Because somebody once mentioned this to me and I'm like, that's a good point. We have a team. So if you go on our website, each team member, it's a team. You got a number and they have a number. And it's not based on tenure. It's like, what number do you want it to be? Having a little fun there, because in a family, I guess in some families, you can truly vote people off the island. Generally, that's more of a team where you kind of have a season with somebody and they move on. Talk to me a little bit about the verbiage you use. Do you guys refer to the Hamilton family? And maybe go into that a little bit more on kind of how you maintain that responsibility to both.
Yeah, so I do refer to the company as, I refer to people as team members within the company, but, there are times where I'll say, this is the Hamilton family here. I mean, and it is truly, in many ways, it is like a family because there are a lot of, there are some family members that work in the company.
Sure.
There are long-standing associates in our company that have their kids working in the company. And that's not unique to our business, but it is unique to LBM because there are a lot of other LBM businesses that are the same way. Obviously, family members that may run the business, there's family members of other associates that work in the company. And even the long-standing associates, the people that I grew up with, are here. And they're very good, very talented people. You want to hang on to the good people that you have. And yeah, that's why you do get the family reference. And I do think that the family reference, these days is lost on a lot of industries, but I don't think it's lost on lumber and building materials. And that's the beauty of our industry that makes it so unique. When it comes to my family at home, I have 3 young kids. My wife's busy with work. I'm busy with work. And we have to actively manage our day, each and every day. We're constantly discussing, okay, who's picking up the kids? Who's dropping off the kids? When do I find my time to get in additional work? Because I have to be present here at Hamilton, but I also have to be present at home. So, my schedule is very sporadic, but like I'll start really early in the morning at like 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning on just emails and desk work and whatnot. That gets me to about like 7 a.m. Kids are up. Okay, now I'm helping my wife with the kids. Everybody's getting ready. Then I go to work, and then I have to maybe leave early to pick up the kids. So it's a constant orchestra and moving parts, but you just make sure that you don't lose sight of what's important and that you are there for the kids. Because the worst thing that could happen is that, what Jen and I don't want to have happen is that not having either one available for them, and they feel like mom and dad are always working and they're not available for us. So we find the time elsewhere to get our work done and our productivity done.
That's a real thing. And I know starting our business, it's in a way the business becomes another kid. And all of a sudden my 2 sons are looking and are like, the favorite son is this thing that has this, that's in this little office and all the magic happens in there. And, you start screaming at kids to quit talking because I got a 4:30 Zoom call and you're like, what am I doing here? Failing everywhere,
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. It's a constant awareness. And at the end of the day, you're like, why are we doing this? Right. It's not
right.
Yes, we want to help contract. We love what we do. At the end of the day, though, it's out there. It's the wife, it's the kids, it's the family, it's all that.
And that's sort of like what we talk about at Hamilton too. Like whenever there's a family situation that comes up for any associate, I tell our managers and me directly, like, family's first. Like that, you're taking care of yourself first. You're taking care of your family first. Like Hamilton will always be here, and we will not suffer because one person had to step out a couple hours early or come in a couple hours later. Now, if it's something that they're doing every single week and it's really hampering their productivity, that's a conversation to have. But, you still have to acknowledge the ebbs and flows of when families require the attention of the people that work for you. And, again, that's one of the beauties of our business is that we can do that and we can still be successful.
Yeah. All right. As we wrap up here, I want you just to maybe mention, I just got one of your newsletters recently. I was impressed with the design, which If there's just a little bit of a design in our industry, you can immediately stand out, look sharp. It had some good information in there. Was it Hot Reads or Hot Read?
Yeah, Hamilton Hot Read.
All right, tell us a little bit about that, and then maybe just give yourself another plug as we kind of wind up also kind of your Instagram or maybe anywhere else people should go to find more about you and Hamilton.
Yeah. So Hamilton Hot Read is our newsletter that we try to do on a biweekly basis, but you're at least getting it at least once a month. And within the Hamilton Hot Read newsletter, well, let me rephrase here. The impetus for the Hot Read was during the pandemic, we were getting loads and loads of information thrown at us from vendors and manufacturers about lead times and pricing and service and availability. We knew we needed to sort of consolidate that information and put it into a very regurgitatable form. Mm-hmm. And that's why we developed the Hot Read for our customers, our contractors and our architects and our homeowners. So, just recently we put out some information about a fundraiser we're running, a blowout on a product line that we have, new service that we're offering. And it's sort of, it's just like it's a weekly or a regular touch point for our customers. Obviously, it offers a little bit of new information for them to have, but it's just a means of us trying to stay connected with our customer base, which is all too important these days. So again, from a connection standpoint, we have the Hot Read, we have obviously our sales driving the connection, we have our Instagram following. We're always looking for ways to stay connected.
Well, hey man, keep up the great work. I've enjoyed knowing you. I've enjoyed learning from you, and not only you and your team. You've done a nice job of having a young, energetic team that I can only guarantee there's local contractors that are like, I like these guys. I want to hang out with them. That they're fun, They're smart, they're young. And I think when you get teams like that, it's easy to say, who are going to be the leaders in the next 20 years? Well, it's a team where you got a bunch of kind of late 30-year-olds and 40-year-olds who are all young and smart and working together and enjoying it and doing something different. Right. That's a way to stand out.
That's what we see in a lot of our contractors too, is like we want to be able to relate to them. And, look, contractors, there's a new age of contractors coming into the mix. And, we want to make sure that we're appealing to them as a dealer. So that's part of why we craft our messaging the way that we do. But yeah, as far as our Instagram goes, at Hamilton Building Supply website, www.hbsnj.com. And from there, you can subscribe to our Hot Read. You can download our Pocket Molding Guide. You can go find our Instagram and all those fun things.
I did see that Pocket Molding Guide. That was good. Yeah, I grabbed it. Well, cool, man. Hey, thanks for making time. I know you're busy. Congratulations on all your success. And Dr. Jen's, it's exciting. I can only imagine what a random evening at the Perna household is like with your kiddos and all that, which also I think you guys do a nice job of on a few of the reels. You'll see Jen coming in and then you see every now and then you'll see a kid come in and it's cool. It's like you just get to a little sneak peek behind what really life is like. And I think it's authentic. And again, so congrats on all your success there.
CEO.
Yeah, exactly. So, all right, John, appreciate you, man.
All right. Take care, Bradley. Thank you.
All right then, friend, how did that go? Hopefully you enjoyed my conversation with Mr. John Perna. As soon as you're done listening to this, go follow them on Instagram. I promise you will not be disappointed. You're going to see them doing some different things. And while you might not think you can pull off exactly what they do, I think finding what works for you and understanding the mechanics that John talked about will help you reach a broader audience and stand out as someone and some company that is doing things differently. If you did enjoy this conversation with John Perna, please rate and review us on whatever podcast platform you are listening to. That means more to us than you know as we strive to grow our audience to bring the construction community closer together to build more safely, more productively, and more profitably. Also, nearly all our conversations, definitely including this one with John Perna, can be found in snippets on YouTube. So go to YouTube, look up Bradley Hartman & Co., and you'll see my conversation with John Perna, the whole thing in small bite-sized chunks. Why? Our goal is to make this easier to share. So if you heard something that you liked, you can share it as video, you can share it as audio with your team members to help you guys run a better business. That's why we're doing this whole thing. And yes, it's 100% free. All right, friend, thanks for listening. I'm out. We're going to close out with our leadership mantra. You are owed nothing. Deliver value first. Make it a great week.